Hello students, how are you? I hope you and your family members will be quite safe and in the protection of Almighty Allah. Yesterday I have discussed the drowning, various types of drowning which are based on the findings of the pathological changes or morphological changes occurring because of drowning in the lungs. They were categorized as two groups. First one, the typical drowning, and the other, atypical drowning. Typical drowning was again subdivided into two groups, freshwater drowning and saline water or seawater drowning. Atypical drowning was categorized into four groups. First one was dry drowning due to spasms of the larynx. Then the immersion syndrome, that was because of the vasovagal inhibition. Then submersion of the unconscious, where a person who is living but unconscious, maybe any reason, maybe alcohol intake, maybe intoxication, maybe head injury, maybe concussion. And the fourth one was near drowning, in which the person may be rescued but dies immediately, or may be rescued but died some days, some weeks after the drowning because of the complications. That is said to be secondary drowning. Then, what is the mechanism of the drowning and what are the effects of drowning in this fresh water and the salt water that has been discussed? Then I started discussing the autopsy finding, external findings, and internal findings. External findings started from the examination of the clothes, examination of the skin, then the postmortem changes, including the postmortem staining, rigor mortis, and putrefaction. And the most important were the cutis anserina, or the goose skin, which is visible over the skin as granular or the puckered appearance of the skin. Then the washerwoman's hand and feet, not diagnostic of drowning but indicative of time since drowning. Then the fine froth formation over the mouth. These were the salient features of the external autopsy findings. Today I will discuss the internal finding. Now the body is lying before you. You have given the NCN. When you give the NCN, there will be oozing of the blood, and that blood will be fluid in nature. This is the first autopsy finding on internal examination. Then we open the chest and the abdomen, and along with the chest and abdomen, there is opening of the neck structures. When we open the trachea, in the image you can see the upper part of the trachea and lower part of the trachea subdividing into right bronchus and left bronchus. Here you can see, due to the drowning in the water has replaced all of the air present in the trachea, bronchus, and the lungs. And here you will see the continuation of the froth which was present over the mouth and nose, and this froth will be occupying whole of the trachea, bronchi, and the lung tissue. Under this froth formation, you will see the mucosa of the trachea and the bronchi, which will appear to be congested. As there is entry of water into the respiratory passages, we'll find all the contents of the water or the medium in which the person has been drowned. So, along with the mucus froth, we'll find the water, and that water will be containing the mud, sand, silt, grit, and vegetations. Now, come to the appearance or the autopsy findings of the lungs. The pathology or the morphology of the lungs due to drowning in the fresh water will be quite different from the findings which we see if the drowning is in the seawater drowning. Here you can see the image of the lung, and this lung is belonging to a person who has been drowned in the fresh water. If you remember the mechanism of drowning in fresh water, whole of the water has entered into the circulatory system through the lungs alveoli, and there is hemodilution. So you will find such a lung which is ballooned and it is enlarged in size. Due to the entry of water into the lung tissue and from the lungs, the absorption of water into the circulation, most content of the lung is air mixed with the water. So, due to the content of the air in majority in the lung tissue, the lung will be lighter in weight. And due to the hemodilution, the color of the lung will become pale. It has increased in size, it has become ballooned, and it is occupying the whole of the chest cavity. And the contents of the chest cavity means it is lying on the front of the heart. Due to the enormous size of the lungs, which is trapped in the chest cavity, many times we find the markings of the ribs over the lung surface. And when we take it out of the chest cavity, it bulges out from the chest cavity because of the enormous size of the lung tissue. After removal from the chest cavity, when it is placed over the autopsy table, it will retain its size because the most of the content of the lung is the air, due to which it will retain its shape and it will appear as if it is the normal lung. When we give a cut to the lung, it gives a sound of crepitations, a sound just like when a person is walking over the dry leaves. Such type of the sound resembling with the crepitus is heard on cutting the lung tissue. When it is divided into different sections, and these different sections are allowed to stand at their own, they will easily maintain their position and they will retain their shape and their size and the position in which they are placed. When such lungs, if it is drowning in the fresh water, these are squeezed, very little fine froth come out because the most of the content of the lung is air, not the water. So these are the findings which we see in the autopsy of the lung of the person who has been drowned in the fresh water. Now we come to the autopsy of the lung of a person who is who is drowned in the seawater or the saline water. If you remember the mechanism of drowning in seawater, due to the hypertonicity of the water, all the water of the circulatory system is pulled into the lungs. Due to the pulling or absorption of the water of the circulatory system into the lungs tissue, again, it will increase in size. It is large and ballooned. Due to the presence of the water as compared to the presence of air in the freshwater drowning, in seawater drowning, the presence of the water in the lung tissue, this will make the lungs heavier and waterlogged. And due to the presence of water in the lung tissue, this will give the purplish or the bluish color appearance as compared to the paler color of the lungs of the freshwater drowning. And its weight is increased and it may attain the weight of 2000 gram as compared with the normal weight that is about 500 to 700 grams. Due to the enormous size of the lungs, because of the water content inside the lung, there is overlapping of the lobes of the lung over the heart and the mediastinum tissues. When we take it out of the chest cavity and place over the autopsy table, unlike the lung of the freshwater drowning, the lung of seawater drowning, it will not retain its normal shape and size and the position. Rather, just like a jelly, it will vibrate to and fro position, and it would like to become flattened as compared to the erected position of the lung of the freshwater drowning. Now we give the incision to the lungs of the seawater drowning, as the majority of the content of the lung is water containing a mixture of the mucus and surfactant. There is oozing of the blood-stained froth coming out of the lung tissue. And on cutting the lung tissue, there is no sound of the crepitation, which is audible in case of the in case of the drowning of the fresh water. Here, because of the presence of the water content in the seawater drowning, we hear no crepitations on cutting. When these lungs of the seawater drowning are cut into different sections, and these different sections are placed over the autopsy table, they will not retain their size, their shape, and their position. Rather, each section will become flattened over the autopsy table, and this is because of the watery content which is in majority. On cutting or making the sections of the lung in seawater drowning, copious amount of the fluid will come out, and on squeezing, a large quantity of the mucus, surfactant, and other blood-stained fluid will come out of the lungs of the seawater drowning. So, this is the different or tabulated form of the differences between the appearance of the lungs due to freshwater drowning and due to seawater drowning. And these differences make a doctor or a surgeon to comment whether the person has been drowned in the freshwater or in the seawater. Because many times the body is recovered from the canal, from the sea, or from the well, then to correspond with the information given in the FIR, the autopsy surgeon has to verify whether this is a case of freshwater drowning or seawater drowning. We have to rely upon the autopsy findings of the lungs. And this is the very commonly asked question from the students in theory and in Viva. Very important feature that is said to be Paldorf's hemorrhages. What are these? Are the subpleural hemorrhages, mostly seen over the anterior surface and the margins of the lungs, and these are produced due to the rupture of the interalveolar partitions beneath the pleura. These are looking just like the petechial hemorrhages, but because of the drowning and because of the rupture of the interalveolar surfaces, these appear under surface of the pleura, mostly over the anterior lobes of the lungs. Next finding, that is the right-sided heart and great veins appearance. Due to the presence of water in the vasculature and the tissues of the lungs, there is obstruction to the outflow of the blood in the right side of the heart, and there is back pressure. This will lead to increase in the size of the right side of the heart and greater veins like the inferior vena cava and superior vena cava. Very important findings which we see on the dissection of the stomach and proximal intestine. Some of the water has been inhaled, which has entered into the trachea and the lungs. The remaining water has entered into the esophagus, and from the esophagus, it has entered into the stomach. When this water it enters through the esophagus into the stomach, this water is containing the contents, different contents like the mud, gravels, pebbles, weeds. These are all will be visible on opening the stomach along with the water, because this is the water which has been ingested, which has been swallowed, and this water is containing different contents of the medium. So this will indicate that number one, this is the place where the person has been drowned. Number two, it indicates the person was alive when he was drowned. In live cases, if the drowning is antemortem, it may enter, the water may cross from the esophagus, stomach, and may be visible up to the level of the duodenum. and this is the definite proof of the antemortem drowning. In postmortem drowning, there the relaxation of the cardiac sphincter and pyloric sphincter has occurred as a process of putrefaction. The water may pass from esophagus through the stomach into the upper part of the intestines, but at that time the external findings will be corresponding with the start of the putrefaction. These are the findings when we open the stomach and find the water along with its different contents like the algae, like the mud and other gravels. And in antemortem drowning, this will be seen up to the level of deuterium, but after the onset of the putrefaction, water and its contents may pass to the distal parts of the intestines. Due to the exertion offered by the drowning person, there are violent respiratory movements to get himself safe and to keep himself alive. There are chances of entry of water into the middle ear cavity due to the violent respiratory movements, and these blood points or the hemorrhagic spots are seen in the middle ear and the mastoid cells. Very important question frequently asked in the Viva and in the theory. What are the biochemical changes which occur in the blood of the person who has been drowned? And these biochemical changes are produced due to the exchange of the water and electrolytes between the inhaled fluid and the blood. For this purpose, a test is performed which is said to be Gettler test. This Gettler test indicates the presence of the chloride contents in the right side of the heart and the left side of the heart. Normally, there is no difference in the contents of the chloride of the right side and the left side of the heart. But in case of fresh drowning, the chloride content on left side of the heart are decreased. This is due to the hemodilution because calcium ion and fall in the concentration of the sodium chloride. So in freshwater drowning, on the examination of the chloride contents of the left ventricle or the left side of the heart, these will be found to be decreased. But in seawater drowning, on left side, the chloride contents are increased. This is due to the high concentration of the chloride contents in the fluid medium in which the person has been drowned. So in freshwater drowning, the chloride contents are decreased, and in salty water or the seawater drowning, the chloride contents on left side are increased. A difference of 25 milligram of the chloride content in the left side and the right side of the heart indicates that the death is because of the drowning. But this is effective or significant up to the first 12 hours. After the passing of the 12 hours, the concentration of the chloride contents either on right side or the left side, it loses its value. This is said to be Gettler test. In freshwater drowning, there is absorption of the fluid from the alveoli into the circulatory system, causing the hemodilution. Due to the hemodilution, there is swelling of the RBCs, disintegration of the RBCs, and due to the rupture of the RBCs, there is release of the potassium ion into the circulation. This will lead to give an increase in the potassium ion contents when there is a case of freshwater drowning. Due to the absorption of the water into the circulatory system, the plasma specific gravity is increased, but on left side of the heart, it is found to be decreased. On right side of the heart, it is more. Magnesium content, again, these are increased in the left and right side of the heart, especially in the seawater drowning. Another chemical that is said to be strontium, it is also increased in the right side and the left side of the heart. A difference of 75 microgram per liter between right and left side of the heart will indicate seawater drowning. If the oxidase, these are estimated quantitatively, they will be increased in the concentration of 800 units in the freshwater drowning. But in case of seawater drowning, these are increased up to the level of 6400 units. So quantitative estimation of the peroxidase, and this has been done only in the animal lungs, not in the human lungs. In freshwater drowning, there is increase up to 800 units. In saltwater drowning, there is increase up to 6400. So these or the plasma specific gravity of the right side or the left side. Magnesium or estimation of the peroxidase. This indicates the fluid medium in which the person has been drowned, whether this is a case of freshwater drowning or the seawater drowning. Another diagnostic feature, whether the drowning is antemortem or postmortem, this is the detection of the diatoms in the tissues. Here in the image, you can see different shapes, different sizes of these structures. These structures are said to be diatoms. What are the diatoms? These are microscopic unicellular algae suspended in the water, and this is present in almost all kinds of the water, whether this is the seawater, this is the canal water, this is the lake water, or this is the brackish water, or even water standing in the fields for the crop purpose. These are indicative of the presence of the diatoms because these are the unicellular algae. There are sorry, there are more than 15,000 species of these diatoms or the algae. It is frequently found in the plain water and the seawater. Even in the cultivated soils and the surface of the moist rocks, these are found. What is its size and shape? 10 to 80 micron up to 1 millimeter, they have the size. And this size up to the 60 microns can enter into the pulmonary circulation during the drowning very easily. Above this 60 microns, they are not able to cross the alveolar membranes. What are their different shapes? These may be circular, these may be triangular, these may be linear, these may be rectangular. In the image, you can see different shapes, different size, shapes, linear, rectangular, triangular, circular. What are the diatoms? These are the unicellular algae, which is found suspended in water. Water of the sea, water of the lakes, water of the rivers, water of the cultivation lands, and even over the moist surfaces of the rocks. Having different size, different shape. The average size is 10 to 80 micron, but up to 60 micron, it can cross the alveolar membrane. Otherwise, it will be trapped inside the alveolar membrane. What is the mechanism of transportation of the diatoms into the human body when the person is drowned in the fluid medium of whether the fresh water or the sea water? In the image, you can see two types of the drowning. On the extreme right side, a person has been murdered elsewhere, then it is being thrown into the water by another person. On the extreme left position, you can see a person struggling to save his life after drowning into the water. These are two conditions. When the person is drowned into the water and he is leaving a person, the water will enter into the respiratory passages and from the respiratory passages into the circulatory system after inhaling the water. When the water which has been inhaled through the nostrils and through the mouth, it enters into the respiratory passages of trachea, bronchi, and the lung tissue. From the lung tissue through the alveolar membrane, it will enter into the circulatory system and through the action of the left side of the heart, which is still pumping during the process of drowning, these diatoms will be transported to different structures, different organs, and these different organs, which are mostly containing the tones, are two. Number one, bones, and number two, brain. In the bones, in the bone marrow, these are found. So, whenever we perform the autopsy of a person who has been found to be drowned in the water, his femur is taken out and it is sent to the chemical examiner for the detection of the diatoms in the bone marrow of the femur bone. And second structure to be sent to the chemical examiner for reduction of the diatom, that is the brain. But in most cases, the brain has become putrefied. So the bone marrow of the femur bone is very effective in the reduction of the diatoms. Although from the left side of the heart, the blood has passed to all of the organs of the body, but these are the two sites, brain and bone marrow, where it is always found. It indicates the antemortem drowning. In some cases, it is found in urine and bile, but it is very rare. So, the most frequently used organ or the structure for the detection of the diatom, that is the bone marrow and the brain. Second source of entry of diatoms into the body, that is the ingested water. Ingested water, it will enter through the esophagus into the stomach, and this water will be present in the stomach duodenum, but these algae are not absorbed through the GIT. So, the single source through which the transportation of the diatoms occur to different structures of the body, different organs of the body, most frequently the bone marrow and brain, that is the inhaled water. Although the algae along with the water has entered into the stomach and duodenum, but across the mucosa of duodenum and stomach, it is not absorbed into the circulation. So the single source is only the inhaled water, not the ingested water. Now compare the situation which I have put before you by giving the image on the right side, the person who has been killed and it is being thrown by the assailant into the water. Here the person is dead. There will be no inhalation of the water, there will be no ingestion of the water, and there will be no pump action of the left side of the heart. So, even after sending the specimen of the femur or the brain to the chemical examiner, we will find no algae, no diatoms in the organs of the person who was dead at the time of drowning. So this is very important diagnostic feature of antemortem drowning because it indicates that the diatoms were transported to the brain and to the bone marrow when the person was live and the heart of that person was pumping. It also helps to determine the site where the person has been drowned because the diatoms found in the river Ravi will be quite different from the person who has been drowned in the river Chenab. Similarly, the canal of Mulpura, if a person is thrown at its proximal port, it will be quite different from the person who has been thrown into the distal part of the Mulpura canal because the diatoms or algae present in the two different sides of the Mulpura canal will be quite different, and this will indicate or help in the determination what is the site where the person has been drowned. What are the diagnostic features of the antemortem drowning? As the person is living, so the process of the respiration will be present, and that process of respiration, if blocked, if interfered, we'll find the asphyxial findings of the cyanosis, congestion, or particular hemorrhages, or the fluidity of the blood. Very important feature that is the cadaveric pause. This is indicative of antemortem drowning, and cadaveric spores is indicated by the presence of the mud, by the presence of the gravels, by the presence of the shrubs or the branches of the tree, which are firmly grasped in the drowning person. And this is possible when the mucus, water, air, and surfactant. And this churning is possible only when the person is showing respiration. Due to the violent respiratory movements in a living person, the froth formation is possible. Otherwise, if the person is dead at the time of the drowning, there will be no respiratory movements, there will be no churning of the mucus, surfactant, air, and mucus and water, so no fine froth will be formed. Sand, mud, and weeds, which was present in the respiratory passages and the stomach and duodenum. Again, it is indicative of antemortem drowning because if the person is alive at the time of the drowning, he will inhale, he will ingest the water, and along with the water, this sand, mud, and weeds will be transported into the respiratory passages or into the GIT, into the stomach and upper part of the GIT up to the level of duodenum. As I have already told you, after the onset of the putrefaction, the passage or transportation of these foreign material like the sand, mud, and weeds, it may be present inside the trachea, inside the bronchi, inside the stomach, but there will be relaxation of the pyloric or the cardiac sphincters that will be indicated by the onset of the putrefaction. The autopsy findings of the lung, these are also very informative in the determination of the antemortem drowning. In antemortem drowning, the lungs are bloated, they are ballooned, they are occupying the chest cavity under pressure. And when we open the chest cavity, we see the lungs which are coming out after bulging out of the chest cavity. And due to the trapping of the lungs inside the chest cavity under pressure, there is formation of the rib marks. Ingested water in the stomach and duodenum will be seen. And the most advanced and scientific method of determination of antemortem drowning is the detection of the diatoms in the bone marrow and brain. These are all the findings which are found, which are seen in cadaveric spores, fine froth formation, or the sand, mud, weeds present in the respiratory passage. and also in the stomach and during organs brain drowning. बस यार सुनेंगे वो शुजात को भेजो वो लेके आया होगा ये गेट पे ग्लव्स लेके आया होगा Sorry for the interruption due to the breakdown of the net. I am discussing the postmortem drowning. Postmortem drowning is a situation where the person is killed at one place, then it is thrown into the water to give different views. It may be an attempt to hide the crime. It may be an attempt to destroy the identity or identification of the murdered person, or it may be an attempt to delay the process of investigation so that the person, after throwing into the water, that will be moved from one place to a distant place, and during this process, the process of identification, the process of investigation will be interfered. So there are a number of motives for which postmortem drowning is carried out. Most important motive of the postmortem drowning is to hide the crime or to hide the identification of the drowned person or the murdered person. What are the identifying features of the postmortem drowning? There will be no cadaveric spores in case of the postmortem drowning. There will be no formation of froth at the mouth and the nostril because to form the froth there should be respiratory movements, and for the respiratory movements the person must be living. As the person is dead, there will be no respiration and there will be no formation of the froth. If no froth is found over the mouth and the nostrils, the question of presence of the froth in the respiratory passages is out of box. In antemortem drowning, inhalation of the water causes the transportation of the foreign material present in the fluid medium like the sand, mud, but in post-mortem drowning, such foreign material will not be found until and unless the process of putrefaction has started, because after the onset of the putrefaction, all the sphincters of the body are relaxed. This will allow the passage of the water from the mouth, from the nose, into the respiratory passages, into the stomach, but it will be beyond the limit of the sphincters, so it can be easily seen in the distant places of the GIT or distant places of the lung tissue if the putrefaction has started. In postmortem drowning, again with the same process of the putrefaction, the water may be seen in the lungs. There will be no asphyxic findings of the congestion of the viscera. There may be associated injuries which may be sustained by the dead body during the process of throwing into the fluid into the water or during its flotation from one place to other after striking with hard objects. There may be presence of the different nature of the injuries, particularly the lacerated wounds or the abrasions, but these wounds will not be showing any vital reaction. Similarly, there are marine animals present in the water, like the fish, crocodiles, the other animals, may cause damage to the soft tissue of the drowned person, but their margins will not be showing any vital reaction. In such cases, the incidence of finding the intoxication cannot be ruled out, and it is very frequently found in such cases of the postmortem drowning. And the most important diagnostic feature, that is the diatoms, these will be absent because the dead person cannot have the heart which is pumping, and without the pumping action of the heart, the diatoms cannot be transported from the respiratory passages through the circulation into the bone marrow or in the brain matter. So these are the diagnostic features of the postmortem drowning, and it always indicates the manner of death to be homicidal because accidental or suicidal postmortem drowning is never possible. What is the medical importance of drowning? In majority of the cases, it is suicidal, particularly among the females, and the site or the areas which are selected for the commitment of for committing the suicide. These are the river, canal, lake, a sea, and the well. And the dead body has been found, but the remnants of clothing or other belongings of the suicidal person may be found at the scene of the crimes. When we examine such cases, we find no signs of the struggle or the assault in suicidal cases. Suicidal notes may be found at the scene of crime, but the other belongings like the dupatta, shalwar, trouser, hat, or shoes may be present at the scene of the crime. And it is common as a dyadic death. Dyadic death is a type of death in which first the person is killed, the person kills the other person, then he the assailant kills himself. For example, a mother throws her child into the river, then finally She herself jumps into the river, and along with the kids, he committed suicide. These types of the deaths are said to be direct deaths. Homicidal death you the identification of the deceased, but to commit the homicidal drowning, the adult person who is young, who is energetic, who is strong, has to be intoxicated or drugged or overpowered by a number of persons before throwing into the waters. These are the motives which promote the homicidal nature of the death. The victim body may remain concealed under the water for many times, for longer times, during which the investigation can be interfered or delayed, or the body is carried from one place to other. Again, it will help the assailant to hide the identification. Accidental cases, these are common among the alcoholic persons, among the epileptic persons, among the children and the old persons, because while walking along the bank of the river, there may be slipping of the old persons or the children who may fall into the running by river or the canal. In case of drowning of alcoholic, the alcoholics have taken up the alcohol, and alcohol has its own effect during the process of the drowning. It has depressing effect over the CNS, impairing the judgment and awareness. So the person is not able to see what is happening with him, whether he is slipping or falling into the water, or what is happening with him. Once he falls into the water, there is decreased ability to react at the time of the accident. Leading to weakness and the confusion, it also affects the heat regulatory system due to running into the cold water. So all these factors lead to the prompt death in case of the alcoholics if the alcoholics are drowned accidentally into the water. Here in the image you can see a very famous Indian actress who was found dead in her bathtub, and this was due to the some alcohol which she had taken, and under the effect of alcohol he could not make an attempt to come out of the tub, so she was drowned there and died there accidentally because of the drowning. From the drowning case examination, how can we determine the time since death or time of drowning? If the person is wearing a non-waterproof wristwatch, it may see watch has been stopped will indicate that this was the time at which the person was drowned. They also help another medium. In case of drowning, the rate of cooling become twice as compared to rate of cooling in the air. Rigor mortis set in early due to muscular activity before death because due to the violent movements of the drowning person, the ATP become depleted very rapidly. This will lead to onset of the rigor mortis in earlier phase. Another feature which helps in the determination of the time of the drowning, that is the wrinkling of the skin or the palms of the soles of the feet, which occur immediately after immersion if it is in the cold water. Then bleaching of the skin that will appear after 12 hours. Sodden appearance of the epidermis of the skin of the soles and the palm. This will appear after 24 hours. And peeling of the skin or removal or the fall of the skin of the hands of the feet like the gloves and the stocking. It occurs or it indicates that the time since drowning is 48 to 72 hours. So, on the basis of different features of the wrinkling, bleaching, and sodden appearance or the peeling of the skin, we are able to determine the time since drowning. Another feature which helps in the determination of time since drowning, that is the flotation of the body. Flotation of the dead body of a drowned person is because of the production of the gases of the putrefaction, and the time of onset of putrefaction is different in winter season and in the summer season. In summer season, the production of the gases is earlier, so the flotation of the dead body that will occur in 18 to 24 hours in summer. But in winter season, the process of formation of gases and the process of putrefaction is delayed for some time. So there will be delayed appearance or flotation of the body in winter, that is the 24 to 36 hours. So these are the different parameters on which we can determine the time of drowning or time since death in cases of drowning from the wristwatch, from the mobile phone, from the rate of cooling, from the onset of the rigor mortis, or the washerwoman hand appearance in the form of wrinkling, bleaching, sodden appearance, or the peeling of skin, and flotation of the dead body. In summer, it is earlier. In winter, it is delayed. In summer, it will take 18 to 24 hours, and in winter, it will take 24 to 36 hours. Due to the immersion of the bodies in the water, there is formation of adipocere formation in which there is solidification of the subcutaneous fat, leading to preservation of the dead body. It again indicates the time of since death about to be 3 months to many years. So these are the different criteria. Any question up till now? I have covered the complete topic of the asphyxial death, starting from the suffocation in the form of smothering, overlaying, traumatic asphyxia, Then the hanging, strangulation with the ligature material, strangulation with the hands means the throttling, mugging, and finally the drowning, which I started yesterday. So in 2 lectures, I have covered question. Any question, any comment, any feedback from your side? The question in the time period of death in case of fresh water and in salt waters. In fresh water, there is bursting of the RBCs, there is release of the potassium ion, and there is formation of the hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia leads to ventricular fibrillation, so death occurs in 4 to 5 minutes. But on the other hand, in saltwater drowning, there is hemoconcentration due to the absorption of the water from the circulation into the lungs. This hemoconcentration leads to development of hypovolemia on one side, and on the other side, it is leading to development of pulmonary edema. Due to the pulmonary edema development, there are interference with the oxygenation of the myocardial tissue. This lead to myocardial anoxia. This myocardial anoxia will lead to cardiac arrest, and it take 8 to 10 minutes for the death to occur. So in ventricular fibrillation, the death is earlier as compared to the cardiac standstill, which will take some time because of the cardiac anoxia. Any other question? I think there is no question, there is no feedback, there is no comment from your side. Okay, thank you. Stay safe, stay blessed.